Death threats in the paddock. A tire test canceled over missile strikes. One of Formula One's most storied teams sitting 4 seconds off the pace, slower than a team yet to score a single point. And a power struggle inside Red Bull that goes all the way to the top of the corporate ladder. The 2026 F1 season has not started yet, and it is already the most chaotic preseason in years. Let's get into every story. At the end of 2024, Sergio Perez left Red Bull Racing by mutual agreement, with 2 years remaining on his contract. He did not take another drive. He stepped away from the sport entirely, spending his time off with his family in Mexico, largely absent from the public eye, and entirely absent from the paddock. Now, in 2026, Perez is back, this time at Cadillac F1, alongside Valtteri Bottas. It is one of the more dramatic comeback stories Formula One has seen in recent seasons. But not everyone is convinced the return will go smoothly. Former F1 driver David Coulthard has raised serious doubts. Perez did prepare. He trained physically and completed several tests, including a private run at Imola in a 2023 Ferrari. But Coulthard's argument is that preparation alone is not the same as staying embedded in the sport. "I'm a little bit concerned for Perez, who's really enjoyed the siesta of a year off," Coulthard said. "I don't doubt his commitment, but can you switch it back on when you've switched it off?" It is a fair question. Bottas, by contrast, spent his year away as Mercedes' reserve driver. He completed tire tests, stayed plugged into the sport's development cycle, and even did a show run in South Korea. The difference in their respective off-seasons is stark. Coulthard's assessment is that Bottas holds the experience edge heading into Australia, and the early races at Cadillac may reveal exactly how much ring rust Perez has accumulated. Pirelli had scheduled a wet tire test in Bahrain ahead of the 2026 season-opening Australian Grand Prix. The test was set to use modified Mercedes and McLaren mule cars. It was cancelled entirely. Not for sporting reasons, but for security ones. Iranian forces struck a U.S. naval base in Bahrain as part of an escalating conflict involving the United States, Israel, and Iran. With that context, Pirelli made the call to cancel the test. It was the right decision, but it raises a much larger question for Formula One. The sport has a Middle East doubleheader coming in April, Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. F1 confirmed it is closely monitoring the situation, while also noting those rounds are still several weeks away. FIA President Mohammed Ben Sulayem stated that safety and well-being will guide the sport's decisions as it assesses forthcoming events in the region. The most immediate event under scrutiny is the World Endurance Championship season opener in Qatar at the Lusail International Circuit in late March. Motorsport is navigating an increasingly complex geopolitical landscape, and the decisions made in the coming weeks will set a precedent for how the sport handles conflict zones going forward. The FIA's World Motorsport Council has approved the closure of a significant engine compression ratio loophole effective June 1st, placing the compliance deadline just ahead of the Monaco Grand Prix. The regulation centers on a 16-to-1 compression ratio limit for F1 power units. The controversy arose after it was alleged that Mercedes was able to operate beyond that limit because the regulation only required the engine to be measured while cold. Once the engine reached operating temperature on track, that measurement no longer applied. Rival power unit manufacturers pushed back hard, and the FIA was forced to develop a method to quantify how compression ratios change across temperature conditions. From June 1st, engines must comply in both cold and hot conditions simultaneously, closing the loophole entirely. Monaco becomes the first compliance checkpoint under the new standard. In a separate but related development, the FIA has also scrapped Monaco's mandated two-stop rule, a regulation that was introduced to improve the race's strategic complexity. Its removal gives teams full freedom over strategy on the streets of the Principality for the first time in recent years. During the second Bahrain preseason test, Mercedes rookie Kimi Antonelli set the second fastest time overall, just 0.8 seconds off the top, time set by Ferrari's Charles Leclerc. On face value, that positions Mercedes as serious contenders, but the more significant signal is what the team chose not to do. Former F1 driver Jolyon Palmer told the sport's official podcast, F1 Nation, that Mercedes ran very few performance-focused laps during testing. The implication is clear. The team was not showing its hand. Palmer's read on the situation was direct. They're very happy. You see George Russell around the paddock, and he is just beaming. It's one of those winners where the only thing ever that comes out of his mouth is just glowing positivity, and you try and piece it all together, and you think they have got something in hand still. The car looks good, and the team are just oozing confidence. If Mercedes have genuinely unlocked a pace advantage heading into Australia, then George Russell, with 5 years of Formula One experience and the tactical intelligence to manage a full-season campaign, becomes the most dangerous title contender on the grid. Christian Horner was removed as Red Bull Racing Team principal in the days following the 2025 British Grand Prix. The official explanation pointed to the squad's poor early-season performance. Horner has now disputed that framing entirely. Horner has alleged that his exit was orchestrated by Dr. Helmut Marko, working in conjunction with Red Bull's corporate boss, Oliver Mintzlaff. He also claims that Marko was responsible for Liam Lawson's demotion following the Chinese Grand Prix last season, a decision that caused significant controversy at the time. Horner was careful to separate Max Verstappen and his father Jos from the political maneuvering. "Max's father has never been my biggest fan," Horner said. "He's been outspoken about me, but I don't believe the Verstappens were responsible in any way." Instead, he pointed to Mintzlaff as the key decision-maker, a figure who rose to prominence within Red Bull's corporate structure following the death of founder Dietrich Mateschitz in 2022. The picture Horner paints is not a Verstappen versus Horner dispute. It is a corporate restructuring at the highest level of one of Formula One's most dominant teams, carried out with Marko as the internal architect and Mintzlaff as the external authority behind it. Whether those claims can be verified remains to be seen, but they carry serious implications for the team's internal stability heading into 2026. Aston Martin arrives at the 2026 Australian Grand Prix in a state of crisis. In Bahrain testing, the car was recorded at over 4 seconds off the pace, a deficit so large that even the newly formed Cadillac F1 team, yet to register a single World Championship start, posted faster lap times. Former F1 race winner Ralf Schumacher did not soften his assessment. Speaking on Sky Sport Germany's F1 podcast Backstage Box, Schumacher directed blame at team co-owner Lawrence Stroll. Stroll has his own way of doing things. He doesn't really talk to anyone. You see him, but he hardly gives interviews. He hasn't earned this by a long shot. Schumacher labeled Stroll an autocrat who is seemingly making decisions on his own. A management culture, he argues, has contributed to the team's performance collapse. The Green Squad's most credible path out of this crisis runs through Adrian Newey, the sport's most decorated technical designer, now serving as Aston Martin's new team principal. Aston Martin ambassador Pedro de la Rosa has publicly backed Newey to lead the team's recovery. Schumacher's own verdict is that the team needs time to reset. But investor patience will not be unlimited if the results do not come. Jack Doohan has revealed that he received death threats ahead of the 2025 Miami Grand Prix, multiple emails warning that his limbs would be severed if he remained in the Alpine race seat. Doohan confirmed he received between 6 and 7 such messages. The threats arrived at a moment of intense pressure. Doohan had crashed in Australia and Japan and had not yet matched the pace of teammate Pierre Gasly. Public and media pressure was mounting on Alpine to replace him with reserve driver Franco Colapinto. In response to the threats, Doohan hired 3 armed bodyguards to protect him throughout the Miami race weekend. "I got serious death threats for this Miami Grand Prix, saying they're going to kill me here if I'm not out of the car," Doohan told Netflix's Drive to Survive. "I had 6 or 7 emails saying if I am still in the car by Miami, all my limbs will be cut off." He admitted he was unable to enjoy what turned out to be his final Formula One start. Amid all the on-track developments, Pirelli, Formula One's sole tire supplier, has confirmed a significant leadership change. Mario Isola, who has led Pirelli's motorsport department since 2017, having replaced Paul Hembry, the man who guided the Italian brand back into Formula One, has stepped down from his position. Isola is replaced by Dario Marabelli, effective March 1st. Isola will remain in an advisory capacity through July 1st to support the transition before departing Pirelli entirely. Isola was one of the most recognizable figures in the F1 paddock over the past decade, present at every race weekend and regularly the public face of tire-related decisions and controversies. The timing of this change matters. Formula One is entering a new technical era in 2026, with revised aerodynamic and power unit regulations demanding new tire performance characteristics. A leadership handover at the sport's sole tire supplier at this precise moment introduces a layer of continuity risk that the paddock will be watching closely throughout the season. Death threats against a driver. A tire test shut down by a military strike. The sport's greatest technical designer parachuted in to save a floundering team. A former team principal accusing colleagues of a corporate coup, and one team, Mercedes, quietly radiating the kind of confidence that title challengers carry into opening rounds. The 2026 Formula One season begins at the Australian Grand Prix in Melbourne, and every story covered here sets the stage for what promises to be one of the most consequential opening chapters in the sport's recent history.